Shalom Aleichem, this is Avraham Shira. Welcome to our Erev Shabbat talk. We are here in outside Jerusalem in the rain and the wind. And what can I tell you? It seems like God is cleaning the air every day with new rain. And hopefully that's cleaning our spirits and cleaning the air that we all have to breathe, and perhaps even cleaning our hearts from any judgments that we might have. You know, the power of judgment is absolutely necessary to survive this world. But the fixing of that power, the elevation of that power, is a divine act. Judging is fairly easy for human beings. We like to look at things and we can tell you what we think immediately. That's good, that's bad, that's right, that's wrong. You know, we have that built-in power to judge. But when it comes to each other, we're lacking a little bit in the lens of judgment, and we need to sweeten that with mercy, and that's really the work of this world, is to bring mercy into pure judgment. And that's why the rabbis teach us that the world was made with the measure of judgment, and then God saw that the world could not exist in judgment, because every time somebody did something, they would be punished on the spot. Anytime they did anything good, they would be rewarded on the spot. And so nobody would do anything for the sake of his relationship with God, because you love God. Because when you don't do something for someone you love, you don't look for reward. And when you don't do something for God's sake, it's not because you're afraid for your own being, but rather because of this precious relationship that we want to build. And so Shabbat is this command to relax. Folks, it's time to take it easy. Relax. And it sounds like, oh yeah, I can relax. I'm good at that. I can head out to the beach very quickly and put out my lawn chair and relax. But right now it's a little harder. The world is not in relaxed mode at all. It's quite in the opposite mode. But Shabbat comes, and Shabbat still commands that we relax. And we see it in the verses, and we see it in the words. Right? 6 days do your work. On the seventh day, sit, rest, stop. Stop your pursuit of success. Because your pursuit of success is not dependent entirely on you. Success is dependent on a partnership with our work and God's participation and his blessing. And he says, you want my blessing? Don't work. Sit, relax, eat, drink, praise, sing, dance, tell stories, be with your kids. Well, now we've gotten a whole... Well, I don't know how long it's going to last, this sitting, this forced vacation, although we're being told it's not a vacation, it's really a Shira, a confinement, if you will. And a lot of people are suffering, and a lot of people are out of work, and a lot of people are worried, really worried, about where their money's coming from. But you know, if I worry about where my money's coming from, when it's not coming in, I should be worrying about it when it is coming in. So what's the point of faith if I don't believe that something's going to be taken care of? What's the point of God? Why do I need this God in my life if not for these moments? I need God in my life when things are great and I look like a big-time operator. Someone this week was telling me how much money they were making in the stock market on everybody else's losses. I'm like, I can't, you don't even hear yourself. You're bragging on the backs of people who are suffering. Okay, so that person obviously is not very well connected to some of the ideas that we like to talk about here. The idea of faith, for example. But when God says, stop, I command you to relax, it's a challenge. And the challenge is in my urgency. It's in my impetuousness to do and to do and to do until I finally get where I want to go and build with what I want to build and make what I want to make and put it in the bank. Although nowadays that's also difficult. So what do? Well, you be honest with yourself, and you either accept that there is a creator who has a personal will for every one of us, Or we kind of keep God out there in the left field by, in the back of the bookstore where we check every 10 years. Either God is in our life completely, or it's just a fixture in your education. It's a piece of your childhood history. Oh God, yeah, that's something. Yeah, I know. And there are people that suffer and people that pay their dues, and they come to the conclusion that there must be something behind the suffering. There must be this higher power. And you give it any name you like. And he tells us to rest. But I know a lot of people that don't like to rest. Even when it's time to rest, they can't rest. And then there's other people that just can't work. They're really good at resting. Right? They're just excellent at that. But of course, either extreme is not really the ideal state. The state is to be ready to do what we need to do every moment, even if that means closing my eyes and taking a deep breath and meditating a little bit on the goodness that is in my life and not on the tragedies that are happening all around us. And there are tragedies happening as we speak, but our little human hearts can only hold so much. Okay, so from Or Chaim on Shabbat, Rabbi Natan is going to tell us, Ki al yedei Shabbat zochim shitei melacha nasit me'elav. Now this is the beautiful idea. This is the hard metaphysical leap. That by not working on Shabbat, the work will be done by itself. Now, okay, sounds like a good movie. Who's going to cook the hamburgers? Who's going to do the floor? Well, we've had that problem before. Floors and hamburgers, And I can't tell you how many times people have showed up to help without being asked. I moved into this house on Erev Shabbat 20 years ago. And suddenly a troop of yeshiva guys came down the hill and moved all my furniture into the new house. I didn't ask them. On Purim, some friends showed up and started cooking and cleaning and doing everything. I didn't ask them. I didn't ask the judge to take it easy on me, and he took it easy on me. That was a real estate deal. But nonetheless, you see, we have to have faith in the principle before we can see the principle work. Naseh v'nishma. And faith is actually an action in the mind. Faith is taking a new position about reality. Faith is just not a passive activity that I surrender to. Okay, it's God, I believe, leave me alone. No. Faith is an active force field of the mind that you generate by inserting the software that you believe, your belief system. And who am I? But I trust these guys because they did a little more work than I've done. And they spent their life dedicated to God. And they told me, when you don't work on Shabbat, the work will get done for you. Because the Kabbalah teaches that everything that happens during the 6 days depends on the life force that it gets from Shabbat. Now that's an utterly mystical idea. Shabbat, a day, gives life force to other days. What does that mean? It's a day. It's a piece of time with planets spinning. And okay, we accept there's electromagnetic fields surrounding everything. Is that what they're talking about? No. When they're talking about Shabbat, they're talking about the power of God invested in time that's distributed over time. Not overtime, like time and a half, when you work more than 8 hours. God distributes his power over time. That's why the whole astrological cycle of the year, the 12 months, is always depicted as a circular calendar. Because each month is getting a new charge of life force from a different permutation of God's name. And there are 12 ways that you can write Yud Kei Vav Kei, God's ephemeral name, eternal name, I should say. But it's changing every month. And that change is changing the permutation of the energy that's flowing through those letters. And these are the primordial letters of creation. We're talking about the forces of God's speech as it is vested into reality. And it changes every month, and so therefore it's a circular calendar, and it's releasing energy into each month. And so too Shabbat. Shabbat is releasing energy each day as it unrolls from Shabbat. So I hope that's not too mystical, but you have to stretch your mind a little bit. But the things that we believe in anyways are so outrageous. There's so much fake news that we're being asked to believe in. Why not believe in something a little older, or something a little more traditional, something based on people that gave their lives for this information, for the Torah and for the Kabbalah and for the Chassidut. And they gave their lives not because they were foolish and fanatical. They gave their lives because they saw it in action in their own life. And that's why I'm here. Because I saw it in action in my own life. When I gave all my money to go to Uman and Rosh Hashanah, and I got back and someone picked up the phone and called me, a complete stranger called me and said, someone wants you to have money. And a great thing worked out. I just, I threw my, I threw my chips into Rebbe Nachman's hand, and he sent back something good. Now this is not easy. I know it's not easy, but it's not easy the way it is. Nothing's easy anywhere. Where's it easy? Easy is in your imagination. You think it's easy to be a billionaire or a millionaire? It's not easy to be them. You just get to have better steak and more servants and a nicer car. But it's not easy. The stress is still on you. The pressure of decision making is on you. The pressure of raising children is on you. The pressure of running a business it's all there. So we got to stop this imagination of ease. Because the real ease is Shabbat. Because God says, sit, stop, don't move. Relax. Take a deep breath. Let me run the world. And he's telling us that every single week. Let me run the world. It's really a refreshing idea. And he tells us, Al yedei hashvita v'amenucha shel Shabbat, through resting, through being at ease on Shabbat, al yedei zeh ikar chiyut v'shefa kiyum shel kol shisha yemei hamaseh. Through the resting is the essential life force and power coming into the 6 days of the week. And this is not about just physical rest, that if I sleep on Shabbat, I feel better on Sunday. Because usually I don't. I miss those American Sundays. But that's okay. Those weren't the most holy days of the week either. But the point is that by rest, I like to think of it as God is stopped working himself, but of course creation is still existing every moment. No, when we say that God rested on Shabbat, he rested from creating new things from his own speech. That many things were created from the original paradigm of creation. But God took a break and rested. Said, okay, let's see what happens here. I released the birds and the animals and the insects and I've got mountains and rivers and valleys and etc. for them to live in, and they're all eating each other when they need to, and it's quite an achievement to design an ecosystem, right? And I've got my right hand man, Adam and Eve, and they're going to work the garden and they're going to guard it. And let's see what happens. God took a break from creating new things. And so that's one of the reasons why on Shabbat we don't light fire. Why? What's fire? Why? Because fire represents introducing a new power into any system. And the idea of Shabbat is I don't need anything new now. I don't need to stimulate myself with something new. I've got it all right here on Shabbat. And if you don't feel like you have it all, I empathize, really. Because if you're not married, you don't have it all. If you don't have kids, for sure you miss that. And if you're missing other things, basic comforts, if you're missing your favorite food, there's all kinds of things you can miss. But having it all is not about just the external items of reality. Having it all on Shabbat means when I'm with God, I automatically have it all. Through Him. Because it's His. It's the universe itself is full. You know, the pasuk says that the waters will be the world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem like the waters cover the sea. What does that mean, waters covering the sea? The water is the sea. The water is not a cover on the sea. So the rabbis address this question and say, no, the waters covering the sea is talking about the upper waters covering the lower, deeper waters. That the knowledge of God is going to get deeper and deeper and deeper in humanity. And that's what's happening. That's why there's 5,000 Chabad houses all over the world. That's why there's Zohar printed in 10 different languages. That's why there's bookstores that are filled with Jewish books of the great sages of the Kabbalah in every city in the world. That's the deepening of the knowledge of God. And it's everywhere. We just don't know how to call it. But when you see it inside, you see it was predicted thousands of years ago. It kind of makes you wonder. Maybe those Jews aren't crazy. Maybe there's something to all this. Now, certainly as the world is dealing with what it's dealing with, and there's a lot to be said about this virus, and there's a lot to be said about the reasons for it, and there's all kinds of predictions about it. And I've been collecting information about it, but I didn't really want to talk about it too much because everybody else is already talking. So what new idea am I going to add to the mix? But there are new ideas that are coming down. There are new understandings. Right now, the best news I heard today was that they found that the medicine for malaria actually knocked out the virus to several people that were already about to die. And I'm sure it's out there somewhere. I think the name of the drug is chloroquine, something like that, and check it out. But it certainly gave me hope that if everybody can get a hold of this drug that's sick, we're going to be in a lot better shape. So, but the idea, again, is God is running the world, and sometimes it's tough, and sometimes there's a decree. And there really is a decree on the world right now. And it has to do with the Jews. And it has to do with the fact that the Jews have been abused long enough. And it has to do with the idea that the nations are not standing up for the truth. You know, it's one thing to say you're PC and you support the black man and the yellow man and the red man, but the Jewish man, well, I don't know. He's a privileged individual. We identify him as the problem. This is enough right there to get God a little upset. You're going to be a hypocrite? You're going to say that you got to stand up for everybody else's rights? Well, what about the Jews? Why is the United Nations always coming out against the Jews? Why is the EU doing everything it can to prosecute the Jews? They're only digging their own grave. Now, I don't know how many people are going to hear this and how many people are going to share it and how many people are going to talk about these ideas. But if I had the access to the leader of the EU and the leader of the States and the leader of China and the leader of all these countries, I'd be like, well, maybe we better change our position on the Jews if we want to get rid of this virus. And I grew up with non-Jews and I love non-Jews. And I understand everybody's working from their own data bank, you know. Not everybody has the same software. But if the world is going to continue allowing Palestinians to throw rockets at us and balloons full of explosives at our children and set kites on fire all summer long, and the world's going to not say nothing, and CNN's not going to put it on the news, but the CNN's going to show you how every Jew does something bad, isn't there some imbalance here? So you see, I wasn't going to talk about this, and I am. What can I tell you? But on Shabbat, it's really the renewal of faith that all of this, the suffering on all sides, is only to make us grow into better people and to acknowledge the truth. And I know Palestinians. I work with them. And a lot of them will tell you exactly what I'm going to tell you right now, that they don't want a two-state solution. Why doesn't anybody ask them? Why isn't the EU over here asking the Palestinians if they want a two-state solution? If you ask the Hamas and the Fatah and the Hezbollah, sure, they're going to tell you, because the two-state solution is just a way to maintain the war machine. But the Palestinians I know have a good life here. And they know that if they get a two-state solution, who's going to be their new boss? And it's going to be the Hamula in Hebron, and the Hamula in Beit Lechem, and the Hamula in Ramallah, and Gaza. And it's not going to be the Israelis who are bending over backward to give them better lives. When the Israelis came to Israel, the Arab women had a 50% child mortality rate. And the Jews came in and said, no, we're going to help you. We're going to stop this. The Jews have been helping the Palestinians all along, but the world doesn't hear about this. They only hear the dynamic press. Now, does that explain why there's a virus going around that eats people up from the inside? And it's chiefly in Iran, the biggest exporters of terrorism ever. It's not a mystery. It's written right in our books. Look in Tehillim, look in Yehezkel, look in Mishlei. It's written all over the Sfarim and all over the commentators for the last 1,000 years. And if you've heard all these things and they're not new ideas to you, fine. Tell your friends. And tell your friends who know people. Because maybe you'll save some lives of the non-Jews. And maybe the world will look up and say, we got to do things right now. We got to change. The Jew is not the whipping boy anymore. And he never will be again. And if those folks don't learn through this virus, well, I hate to think about what could come next. So, Shabbat gives us a chance to stop and to rest and have faith and to believe that this has to happen for the good of everyone. And the good is that it gives us a chance to reset our sights and rebalance the scales and get good and get straight with Hashem. Get straight with righteousness. So I want to bless everybody to get straight with yourselves, with your families, with your friends. Take your time now to be with your kids, to tell them you're sorry for raising your voice, and to tell them that I really want to do better. And I want to get along. And I want to have a good time because I love you. And this is a blessed time that we don't take the time for unless we're forced to. And so God comes down and says, no, I'm going to force you to. Shabbat, once a week. I want you to sit there and be with yourselves and be with your families. So think of this as a big Shabbat, and we're going to activate it. We're going to utilize it. We're going to grow from it. God bless all of you. We'll see you again next week on Patreon, YouTube, Facebook, AvrahmShira.com. We're going to be coming out with some new books soon. Got some new poems coming up that are live. And it's great to be here. It's great to have you here. Shabbat Shalom.